What is going on, Tentacrew? My name is Billy the Squid, and I have a GED in game balance and an opinion on the internet, and that's good enough for me to make a video about the new killer on Dead by Daylight, Nemesis. So let's get this show on the road. So, as you can see here, the next chapter for Dead by Daylight is a Resident Evil chapter. They're bringing in Jill Valentine, they're bringing in Leon S. Kennedy, and the big baddie is Nemesis. And a lot of people are very excited about this. I am as well. I think a lot of the perks and stuff, which we're not going to be getting into in this video, for all three of the characters are going to be very, very good. Not necessarily game-breaking, but they are definitely something that could shift some metas into different playstyles. I think there's a lot of really fun and interactive perks in these lists. They're a lot better than some of the previous ones that we've gotten, but this video is not about that. This video is about Nemesis himself and how I think he's going to do. So let's get this show on the road. So as far as I'm aware, and I'm trying to find it in here. Yes, Nemesis is a standard movement speed killer. He's got the 115 movement speed. If you are charging up your Tentacle Strike, you go down to 95% movement speed. So pretty decent speed, honestly, for having the ability held. You're only slightly losing survivors. They shouldn't be able to gain on you too much from that. But yeah, let's get into it. Like I said, we're not going to go into the perks too much. I think two of his perks are very situational but fun, and I think Lethal Pursuer is just a good perk all around on killers that the early game is super dependent on, like Myers, Ghostface, stuff like that. I feel like Lethal Pursuer is actually going to be an amazing perk. But going down the line, he's got Raw Fists. They are just he waylays into people, and it's cool. So nothing too bad there. All character attacks and lunges are the exact same. But then we get into his power, and his power is a little bit interesting because it builds on kind of an evolution mechanic, kind of like Myers, but it's all permanent. So he's got the Tentacle Whip, okay? What it does specifically is it does a straight line skill shot. If you hit somebody at first with it, it contaminates them. Oh, right, here it is. If you hit them again after somebody's already contaminated, they will take damage instead. So first hit, if they're not contaminated, is just a debuff, and then every hit after that is the same as a standard M1. My issues with this skill right now as they are is the hitbox is very narrow on it, and I feel like that's a bit of a balancing thing because it can hit over pallets, it can hit over windows and stuff like that. It can't go through walls like what Pyramid Head's ability does, but it's a bit narrow. It's a bit awkward to use. The range on it isn't super duper easy to get used to from what I've been seeing, but maybe once people get used to it more, it won't be so easy to dodge. But the Tentacle Strike has three forms. So base form is just a 5-meter slash with the tentacle. Nothing special about that. If you do hit somebody with the tentacle, they get hindered. How long are they hindered for? It is a 20% movement speed reduction for a quarter of a second. So not a lot of movement speed there, but it will make it a little bit better. Like if you hit a max range tentacle, you'll be able to close the gap a little bit more, or at least not lose somebody while you're going through your recovery animations from using the tentacle. So it'll make the chasing a little bit easier in that regard. Once contaminated, also survivors are able to go to a supply case and use a vaccine to get uncontaminated. That way they won't be taking damage next time they get tentacle struck. Waste the killer's time a little bit. I don't see people using this a whole lot just because I don't see there being... I don't think the ability is that scary to warrant you actually going out of your way and wasting time to decontaminate. It's not like the plague where it spreads to other players just by being in contact with them or generators or anything like that. It is just a self-debuff. It's not going to affect anybody else. And honestly, it's no different than getting hit with a regular M1. So I think a lot of people are just going to forego that, especially considering once you get unvaccinated, Nemesis gets to know where you're at for a second. So it don't see the benefits of decontaminating too much. But moving on. So as I was saying, there are 3 different rates for the tentacle. One is standard 5-meter slash. Second gives him the ability to break through walls and pallets with the tentacle. And then third adds an extra meter onto the tentacle slash range, bringing it up to 6 meters from 5. I think tier 2 is going to be very, very important to get early on this killer if you want to do anything well with him. Yes, he can hit over pallets. Yes, he can hit through windows. But being able to outright destroy a pallet, like basically like a chainsaw, but on a much shorter cooldown, you don't have to rev up and then go through, I think is very, very strong in certain circumstances. The other part of his ability is he has 2 zombies that roam the trial grounds. So the way the zombies work is they, at the start of a match, pop up underneath random hooks, and they will free roam around the map. And if somebody gets in the 90-degree cone in front of them, they will start going at them. There is a breakaway limit on how far you have to be to get away from a zombie and to get it to stop chasing you. But that is how that mechanic works. And this is honestly, I have a mixed bag about this one. So there are counters to the zombies specifically. You can flashlight them and firecracker them, or flashbang them with Leon's new ability. And that'll stun them for 10 seconds. They'll just be dormant. They'll stand there. They'll do nothing. You can also use a pallet. If you drop a pallet on a zombie, it will kill it. And it takes a decent amount of time to respawn if a survivor is to kill them. Also, the Nemesis can walk up to the zombies. He can actually see where the zombies are on the map, so he can kind of, in a chase, try to lure people towards the zombies that they might not know are there. But if the Nemesis tentacle slashes a zombie, it actually fills up his mutation bar just like he was attacking a survivor. Not quite as much, and the revive on the zombie is shorter than if a survivor were to kill it. So that is a way of kind of feeding your mutation bar early to get to that tier 2, like I said, which I think will be the big boost. I don't see that extra meter really helping too awful much, but like I said, it all depends on how good people can get with the tentacle slash. And this is where I kind of want to get into Nemesis as a killer himself, and where I think he's going to rate. I am slightly concerned on 2 aspects of this. On base level, I think Nemesis is going to be middle of the pack average, like just blatantly average in every capacity. He's not a standard M1 killer like what Wraith is or anything like that. The ability to hit over the pallets and over the walls will help shorten chases a bit, but this game thrives on killers that either have amazing map mobility or super good ways of ending fights quickly. You see, like, Nurse has both of those. You see Freddy has both of those. You see Spirit has both of those. There's a lot of mind game potential in all of those, as well as being able to traverse the maps very, very fast and efficiently. And then you have killers like Myers and Ghostface, which Myers isn't in the best shape in the world, but he's not that far off from being in the top tier spot. It just takes a little too long to get him charged up. But with like Ghostface, for instance, being able to one-shot down people is a huge boon. Nemesis doesn't have really either of those. So his map presence is non-existent, basically. Yes, you can use perks and stuff to supplement this, but in his base kit, he has no way of quickly traversing maps. Maybe once you hit tier 2 and you're able to smash down pallets, that will help you with your chasing and like route setup. Or maybe if you are able to get really good with the tentacle and get close enough so that you can hit people over pallets or over walls and stuff without getting stunned yourself, that could help potentially end chases faster. But at the end of the day, it's a ranged ability that, until you're able to smash pallets with it, is a worse Huntress hatchet. It's a ranged attack that doesn't do any more than a standard basic attack. Hell, if somebody's not contaminated, it actually takes one extra hit more than a basic attack to down somebody. And it just seems like a very slow way of progressing, especially with the mutation thing being added on. I can see there being a few perks that could synergize well with this. I'm not going to get into perks. This is just base kit setup on where I think he will rate. So the Tentacle, while I think the mutation mechanic is cool and the ability to smash walls at tier 2 and be able to hit over windows and pallets is cool, I don't think is going to be enough for him to not get rushed. I think him getting rushed is going to be a very, very big issue. That being said, perks might help supplement that, especially with the ability to keep people busy. If it comes down that people are actually wanting to decontaminate, that is a good slowdown mechanic, but I just don't see the contamination actually being that threatening to warrant that. But this brings us to the other part, which is the zombies. The zombies are a point of concern for me. So the way that they work when they attack is if you're not contaminated, I believe they just contaminate you. They basically function exactly the same as the Tentacle. First hit, if you're not contaminated, contaminates you. Yeah, right here. And if you are already contaminated, then you receive damage. So that's cool, and I like that. It's another method for Nemesis to be able to get hits and get contaminations on people, so that whenever he does start up a chase, he's able to start doing regular hits with that ranged attack and make it a little bit more valuable. But I do not like the RNG nature of these zombies. I think there is a big point of frustration in mechanics that a survivor doesn't feel like they can work around. You see stuff like this with Doctor, where just making your terror radius as massive as possible and then using your ability to find people off of that. It's not exactly a fun time, because at the end of the day, unless you are skirting the edges of the map constantly and not doing anything, you're not going to be able to get away from that kind of ability. And this kind of has that same thing. There's an RNG mechanic to it where I feel like it's either going to be really, really good or really, really bad. On wide open maps, I could see these zombies being completely useless for the most part. Too many ways to route around them. Unless, by chance, a zombie wanders into a jungle gym or one of these really good... Like, a zombie in Killer Shack would be ridiculous. It would be so hard to work around. You would almost have to drop the pallet to try to kill the zombie to get that loop to be able to be used at all. And at that point, the loop's pretty well botched. On another point, if those zombies are just out free roaming in the middle of nowhere, they're not going to get any use. Nemesis isn't going to be able to use them unless he like goes and resets them. I could see good Nemesis players seeing that they're zombies in a shit spot, killing them with a tentacle, resetting them, hoping to get another RNG roll. That could be a potential thing. Another thing that I've seen that I think is going to be extremely frustrating is the zombies camping hooks. So, as I said at the beginning of the video, the zombies will pop up under a random unoccupied hook. That's all well and dandy, but if in the series of a chase, the Nemesis kills a zombie and downs the survivor, what if he's carrying that survivor, the zombie pops up underneath the hook, the Nemesis throws the survivor on that hook, and then that hook basically has a camper on it straight up. Like, the zombie is just going to be slowly shambling around. If anybody tries to go and rescue that survivor at any, like, quick amount of time, the zombie is going to be there camping the hook, making it very hard for the person who is on the hook, who most likely is contaminated because they were down by the Nemesis, and that's the primary way I see this killer actually downing people. I don't see him punching people that much, unless it is to finish, like an injured survivor that is decontaminated. You just run up M1 them, call it a day. But if you get pulled off that hook when you're contaminated, the zombie tracks onto you, boom, you're down again. Or if you're trying to rescue somebody, even if you're not contaminated, it's still going to be a hindrance because you get hit once by the zombie or have to dead hard through it and whatnot. It still follows you over to where you're at. You have that animation of you pulling somebody down. It's there. There's nothing you can do about it. You're most likely going to take a free hit of either contamination or damage. So the RNG nature of these zombies is concerning. There are a few ways that I think this could be circumvented. I think maybe lowering the cone on the zombies so that they're not as oppressive in that regard, like they won't track you forever. Maybe shorten the range that they are able to track you, like if you get so far away you can actually get them broke off. That way the survivors have a way of like leading the zombies away and then getting away safely. Another thing that I was thinking for the zombies would be like maybe if the zombies do prove that they are being too much, having them stand dormant unless they are within Nemesis terror radius. I think that could be an interesting mechanic. And that could kind of give the survivors a little bit of a know-how that, hey, the Nemesis is coming, I see that zombie moving. Another option would be giving Nemesis, because I feel like the nature of having an NPC-style character that can do damage to a survivor is where the frustrations are going to come from. So maybe giving the Nemesis an ability to have more control over the zombies. Yes, you can reset them by killing them and them popping up elsewhere, but maybe giving him the ability to actually pick which hook that the zombies spawn from. That way it's a conscious decision on the killer's part that, like, yes, I want this zombie to watch this loop. I don't know. I can see this killer being very frustrating to play against, all dependent on how the zombies perform. I can also see this killer being very frustrating to play as, depending on how the hook or the tentacle slap ends up actually functioning once people get used to it. If it is a very narrow skill shot, which it looks like it is, I could see there being a lot of issues with that, at least at lower ranks. Red ranks, people are going to be ridiculous. If you can get good with Huntress or Trickster or anything like that, Gunslinger, then this is, while I would say a worse version of them, it's at least a fun mechanic with the mutations and stuff like that. And I do like the ability to be able to bop down pallets very, very quickly and efficiently. But given that he has no way of insta-downing, he has no way of killing people more than just 2 hits, whether it's from the tentacle or from the regular M1s, or 3 hits if they're decontamined, I don't see him functioning super high tier in the meta. I could see him being a very solid mid tier to lower mid character, but that's not the end of the world. He definitely looks fun if things work out well for him, if people are able to get used to it. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with this killer, as long as the zombies aren't overtuned and it doesn't lead to severe survivor frustrations. I could see indoor maps just being dreadful with these zombies roaming around, just all the tight narrow corridors. It could just be a really bad time depending on the map. So that is my thoughts on the Nemesis. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and follow the channel. Also, I do stream Dead by Daylights pretty frequently over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Billy_the_squid. Link will be down below. Much love, guys. See you later.